Well, it's time for us to cut to the briefing ANC at Luthuli House.
That opens us to manipulation of the processes. The NEC also resolved that there is need to increase quantitative membership and qualitative leadership within our ranks by deepening ideological clarity and greater support of cadre development to deal with the scourges of factionalism, disunity and corruption. The NEC has called for stronger consequent management within the ANC. Discipline within the ANC must be stringently enforced at all levels, and the values of the ANC must be discernible in all members, in statement and in conduct. Self-serving and careerist politicians must be discouraged from our ranks, and those who use the ANC for selfish gains must be acted against. Accordingly, the ANC has called for introduction of an ad hoc lifestyle audits for political leaders and public servants. The NEC has also directed that all allegations of corruption must be responded to and clarified as soon as they arise. In other words, when we read headlines on a Sunday, many of them, if those headlines are not reflecting reality, we must have the responsibility to respond to those headlines, clarify the issues. Because if you leave them, they create perceptions, and perceptions left unattended are as dangerous as facts. So, in other words, when there's an allegation that is wild against me, I must be able to come up and say, no, 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 no. That is not reality. The true fact is as follows. Therefore, we'll appeal to all of you to give us that right of reply. I think we're entitled to it. A right to reply. If you make an allegation, you want to reply, you must be given space to reply to that allegation. Sometimes things are said in newspapers, in radios, in television, about us. When we want to reply, sometimes it is very difficult. Sometimes some want to edit the response. Don't edit our response. Allow us to speak for ourselves on a number of issues. The answer remains a disciplined force of the left with a strategic goal of creating a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous society. To do so demands that we fulfill the responsibility and duty of the ANC to mobilize the entire nation around common vision of the kind of society we wish to attain. The NEC has directed structures of the organization to deepen engagement with all sectors of society. To this end, the NEC will develop a program of action to build capacity in the organization, strengthen areas of weakness, and reconnect with the motive forces of our revolution. Doing this requires openness to the ideas of people and engagement with those whose approach is destructive. Vindictiveness and defensiveness only sustains negativity. This process of engagement must include, among others, more direct and meaningful engagement with youth and the middle stratum of society. The NEC also resolved to support that the ANC Veterans League must hold their national conference with the law, which is long overdue. Our view is that once we do that, it will be a call on all veterans of our movement to be part of this conference to ensure that issues are thoroughly discussed and canvassed among them. By so doing, veterans of the ANC will be able to engage the ANC in a productive and structured manner and are able to make a full and rich contribution to the work of the ANC and the movement and the nation at large. We're trying to address a problem that we're having where we receive requests by a number of groups of veterans who want to talk to the ANC. We think that that is not a helpful approach because you don't allow your veterans to be all over. They must go to a conference, put a structure properly, because that structure will be able to convene meetings of veterans if there is something that is urgent, rather than the ANC expected to receive all requests from a number of groupings of veterans. So what we are going to be working on and investing in is an urgent conference of the ANC Veterans League. That structure was formed to facilitate the Veterans League's expression of views and a consolidated program of veterans to assist the ANC. The relationship between alliance partners are at their lowest since the 52nd National Conference of the ANC. To address these challenges, bilateral engagement between alliance partners will continue. We have started. The Alliance Secretariat Political Council will also meet in a series of meetings to develop a program towards the 2017 Alliance Summit. We are planning to have an Alliance Summit first quarter of 2017, but that should be a culmination of preparatory meetings. When we talk of a political council, we talk of the official or national office bearers of the various alliance partners. When they meet together, they constitute what we call the political council. Then that will culminate to an alliance summit in the first quarter of 2017. The NEC extensively discussed the challenges a number of state-owned companies are facing. And on the Southern Broadcasting Corporation, the NEC called on the board of the corporation to review the decision to appoint Mr. Taudum Tsening as Group Executive of Corporate Affairs. The NEC agreed on the need for the parliamentary inquiry into board's fitness to hold office. And the NEC further expressed its discomfort with the ESCOM's decision to suspend the independent power producer program in direct contradiction to what has been adopted as policy decision of the ANC. Government is urged to consider this stance, to reconsider this stance. The ANC has also called for speedy resolution of the impasse between Tenel and the Minister of Finance. Now, you will notice that we are referring some of the decisions to the government structures, because that's where they should be resolved. We don't want to replace a cabinet with us, ourselves here in Tuli House, but when the NCC takes decision, it directs leadership in government to deal with particular issues. And sometimes people ask us, why government, why can't we do it? It's because if it's a government matter, government must resolve that issue and address it. The monopoly capital remains the main enemy of our revolution, and the ANC must do even more to fundamentally alter the structure of our economy. However, as we continue to work hard to avoid sovereign ratings downgrades, the ANC must not be seen to be protecting the interests of white monopoly capital only. We must strike the balance that ensures that we urgently implement measures of changing the ownership, the control and management of the economy, working with business and labor and sectors of society. NEC welcomed the amendments of the preferential procurement policy framework and called for the engagement on the regulations being developed to boost small businesses and buying power of the state for transformation. In other words, it is easy for us to just talk about monopoly capital in passing word. If we don't change the structure of the economy, transformation will remain a dream. That's what the ANC says. Let's focus on actually attending the structure of the economy so that it supports the transformation program. The NEC remains concerned about the challenges facing the global economy and its impact on our own economy. Measures to confront these realities are expected to form part of the discussion at the BRICS Summit in India next month. South Africa will continue to call for the transformation of the Bretton Woods institution and oligopolistic, big words, credit rating industry. To this end, the NEC supports the NEC-led government in the call for establishment of a BRICS credit rating agency. The NEC also resolved to support the call for an African candidate, Comrade Thomas Salomao of Mozambique, to be elected Secretary General of the Socialist International. So that is not given, it's something that we must go and lobby many others for. So that we must have a secretary from the continent being the secretary of the Socialist International. The ANC will hold the celebration of the 105 anniversary of its founding, that is January 8, 2017, in Gauteng. On Sunday, 8 January 2017, the NEC further adopted the roadmap to the National Policy Conference, which will be held in June 2017. The National Policy Conference reviews NEC policies and makes recommendations on amendments and a new policy to the National Conference. NEC congratulates the South African Olympic and Paralympic teams for flying high the South African flag in Rio. NEC sends its well wishes to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela on 80th birthday, a life that she has lived purposefully for liberation of our people. The NEC sends wishes of joy, hope, and happiness to our Jewish compatriots as they celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, yes, that's it. Now, that is where we end with the statement. We ran a risk in the NEC of wanting to congratulate vets for winning the top 8. And I can tell you, there was an uproar. What is all this? Now, you know football, when you begin to talk to club football, you divide any structure. So we held back on that because people wanted us to congratulate Pirates and Chiefs for not playing. And it's not possible to congratulate a team that is not in the finals. It's not, doesn't work in real life. But we're quite happy with the fact that the Springbok won against the Wallabies. That's hope. I want to congratulate Tuti for that good work. Same for the Proteas. They're playing very well at this moment. And there's depth. We were complaining that Rabada was not in the starting lineup.
Wrong one.
Pavum?
Also black. Look alike.
No. So that's it. We're happy that progress is being made in sport and transformation is quite visible and there's depth. It's not just one black player at a time. When he is finished, another one emerges. At least now they're coming in numbers. You see. That is quite promising for all of us. That is our statement for the NEC. But there was a resolution on higher education protests and demand for free higher education. We're quite supportive of the initiative that is sitting at Emperor's now. It's a necessary, difficult process that must be undertaken. It must be repeated over and over until there's consensus on how to move ahead. The National Executive Committee deliberated extensively on the ongoing protests in higher education. The NEC is disturbed by the interruption of academic program that has resulted from the wanton destruction of property, intimidation, and violence. We think that society must have a debate about this. The right to protest and protection thereof, but the responsibility not to destroy property, not to intimidate others, not to have violent protests. ANC expresses its condolences to the family of the VIT employee who lost her life in the past week. The Freedom Charter says, we thought we should quote this because there is this looseness of quoting the Freedom Charter. We thought that let's refer to it directly because sometimes it's exaggerated. Very few South Africans acknowledge that we've gone beyond what the Freedom Charter wants. We've gone beyond it. Let's go. This is what it says. Doors of learning and culture shall be opened. It says specifically about higher education, that higher education and technical training shall be open to all by means of state allowance and scholarship on the basis of merits. So the Freedom Charter is talking about selecting people who will get the scholarship and allowances of the state on the basis of merit. We've gone beyond that. We are supporting children from poor households, not on merit, on the basis of the need to give them access to education and full development, irrespective of the economic status of the household. That is what we're saying is not discussed. And we're not factoring in the discussion. People say there will be free education. No, that is not what the Freedom Charter says. The Freedom Charter says higher education and technical training shall be open to all. That is the right to it. By means of state allowance and scholarship on the basis of merit. The right is open, but access is on the basis of merits. We have exceeded that. That's our submission for a public debate. At least 2 conferences of the NEC confirmed our resolve to implement free higher education for undergraduate level studies for the poor and working class families. We have been hard at work to ensure the progressive realization of this project. And sometimes we would like us to as we open this debate, to open up on what has been done and what is outstanding in achieving this objective. 1, substantial injection of new funding since 2010 to support the progressive introduction of higher education and training for the poor. The NSFAS is a state-funded program for funding poor students at university, technical and vocational colleges. And government, through NSFAS, has already introduced free TVET college education to poor students because NSFAS at TVET college is not a loan, but a grant. NSFAS bursary funding for TVET colleges has increased from 318 million in 2010 to 2.3 billion in 2016. And the loan funding in universities has increased from 2.2 billion to 6.4 billion in 2016. Substantial additional funding disbursed by NSFAS from National Skills Fund for scarce skills bursaries, sector education and training authority sitters for bursaries to support skills in specific sectors. Department of Basic Education for teacher bursaries, Department of Social Development, among others. You can go to the health sector. Medical schools are funded by the state for free. You get a bursary when you go there. So at a point as a country, let's quantify what we've done so that we can know what is outstanding. At this point in time, the debate is open as if nothing has happened. This commitment was made. And a total of 14.6 billion will be disbursed by NSFAS in 2016 academic year to support approximately 480,000 students. 2.543 billion of the 14 billion has been earmarked for loans to pay off the historic debt of NSFAS qualifying students who were either underfunded or not funded in 2013, 2014, and 2015. So we are responding to the issues confronted in real life by the students from poor families. Government provision of 1.9 billion of the 2.3 billion shortfall resulting from subsidization of the 2016 university fee increase with more than 4.5 billion in 2016-2017 financial year is being reprioritized to NSFAS. The NEC believes that the interventions of the ANC-led government gave practical expression to the education provision of the Freedom Charter. In fact, NSFAS goes beyond the Freedom Charter demands in that thousands of the poor students are assisted through NSFAS. This funding model advances our goals of addressing inequality and ensuring poor are not excluded from enjoying the opportunity of accessing higher education. In other words, in the debate, we must deal with the question of a stratified society in unequal society like ours, whether the state must fund everybody, irrespective of the economic status. Our position is that we should fund access to education for the poor. Those who can afford, including myself, must pay for the education of their kids. And this, of course, must pay. In the recent announcement by Comrade Blade, the Minister of Higher Education was welcomed as a significant step towards realizing free education, fee-free higher education for poor students. Students who are current recipients of NSFAS and new applicants will be supported to meet the cost of 2017. Students whose families earn up to 600,000 annual household income will not have to pay any fee increases. The so-called missing middle will also receive NSFAS support. This is an unprecedented progressive intervention by NEC government. Only those who can afford to pay will